It's going to take some time. It's so much work. It just never ends. So much work. You think you're prepared, you're never prepared. Okay, let's go. You were here before, yeah? What is your name? Your last name?
Dennis.
Your second name? You were here last week, right?
Yeah.
Are we? That's it. We got 3 students. That's the whole situation.
Basia is coming up, so we'll have 4.
Is there any reason I'm not starting to teach? Is there any reason why I'm not starting to teach? Okay, I've got this water in me. Okay, we're on top of page 157. The same thing as last week. You gave it back to me. It was smart.
What's my name?
There's more than one. I gave you more than one, right?
Who needs?
If anybody needs, you know. Like I was saying before I started, on this day, the day of Edom and Plata, with Friday, the 5th of Sivan, which is what we're learning about basically, there are 5 sichas that I prepared to teach. There's more than 5, but 5 that I prepared to teach. This is the first, and I got 4 more after this. And I prepared them before. I organized them in my mind. I set them all up. And I sat down this morning to work them over. And I changed my mind and changed my mind and changed my mind and changed my mind. I think I know how I want to teach them, but I'm not prepared to teach them just yet. But I have to figure out how to frame them, how to present them. So preparation never ends. Preparation never ends. Preparation never ends. Preparation never ends. It's Friday, the 5th of Sivan. And like the Rebbe says in one of his sichas, Moshe was so busy that day, he didn't get a chance to go up to God. Friday, the 5th of Sivan, Moshe was so busy, he didn't get a chance to go up to God. He was busy with all kinds of things. He was converting the Jewish people, he was bringing sacrifices, he was writing, he was reading, he was pronouncing. He was very busy. And while I'm talking already, let me just mention that one of the things I saw this morning in my learning, my preparing is, where the Rebbe asks the question that I asked you last week. If you remember, last week's class was 2 distinct classes. The first class we read at Rambam, and the second class we started the Sikha, which you have in front of us. When I read the Rambam, I pointed out that the Rambam says that Gerus has 3 points. Conversion has 3 points. Bris Milah, Mikvah, and Korban. So I said to you, there's a 4th idea, which is to accept the mitzvahs. And I wondered why the Rambam doesn't mention it. So I said to you, because accepting the mitzvahs is not an action, it's only words. Well, the Rebbe says exactly the opposite. You know why the Rambam only lists 3 things, Bris Milah, Mikvah, and Korban, and not accept mitzvahs? Because accepting the mitzvahs, that's the conversion itself. When you convert, you have to do 3 things. The 3 things that you're doing are supporting the conversion, but the conversion is an asa v'nishma. Sholish mitzvahs nichnas yisrael lebris. We made a covenant with Hashem. The covenant was made when we said nasa v'nishma, we will do what we will hear. The 3 things are supporting the covenant. But if you don't say you're willing to be a Jew, it's all nonsense. It's nothing. Doing a bris and going to the mikveh, bringing a korban is supporting becoming a gayer. The gayros is agreeing to be a Jew. It's accepting the mitzvahs. That's what the Rebbe says this. All of this happened on Friday. But the sikha we're learning is speaking to something specific, which is that the story in the Chumash is not in order. The story in the Chumash is not in order. Because in Pashas Yisrei, you have most of the story of what happened when Hashem gave us the Torah. You have Monday, you have Tuesday, you have Wednesday, you have Thursday, you have Shabbos. In Pashas Mishpatim, you go back to the end of Thursday and into Friday. And the Rebbe's question was, why can't the Torah be written in order? And the Rebbe's answer is, the Torah is written in order, it's just not written in a chronological order. There's more than one order. There's an order of time, and there's an order of topics. And the Torah is written topically. Because in Hashem giving us the Torah, there's 2 big ideas. There's the Eibishter giving us the Torah and us receiving the Torah. And in Pashas Mishpatim, it's describing our end, our half, how we become Jews, how we convert, how we commit to the covenant, how we establish our bond with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and so forth and so on.
Some poison.
Oh, thank you. Oh, poison.
Yeah.
How much coffee is in here?
1 spoon.
That's not poison, that's coffee. Poison is 4 or 5. When I drink, when I make myself obnoxious, what is it called? Obnoxious. I can't make a bracha on it. It's partially poison, but it works. It gives you a joke. But thank you for the coffee. Thank you very much.
You see, no poison.
Huh?
No poison because I'm a good student.
Yes, because you're a good person. Okay. But thank you. Thank you very, very much. So let's start on page 156, Sif Dalet. We read this already. We'll start from there again. Okay? Page 156, the second underline. As you know, I hope and I trust that the way you follow Misiches is if you'll read only the word underline, you won't get lost. Because I don't read everything, otherwise it will take us forever. I just read excerpts of the Sikha. So we're going to continue here, okay? This is a continuation of last week's class. I'm going to warn you. I don't think it'll take us that long to finish the Sikha. After we finish the Sikha, I have to break because I have to push it, prepare the next. I prepared, but I'm not prepared. No, I have to make the underline. So it'll take a few minutes. But let's begin. Sif Dalet. There's no reason to waste time. Doesn't say any place the Sikha has to take 6 weeks. It can take a week also.
Wait.
Page 156.
I see, I know.
Second column, second underline.
Yes. Oh.
The minute for enfed bepashas. The aforementioned idea that when Hashem is giving us the Torah, there's 2 parts. Number 1, how Hashem gives it to us. And number 2, how we enter into a covenant with HaKadosh Baruch Hu at that time. Is for enfed bepashas. It's explained very simply that Hemshech Seder HaPashas V'Anyanim, the continuation and the order of the sections and the ideas as they're in the Sedris, in the order of the Pashas and the Chumash. Number 1. Bria steht in Torah. First, the Torah tells us, which is in Pashas Yisrei, das was ist Sheiches zum ersten Inyan in Matan Torah, everything related to the first part of Hashem giving us the Torah, and the Rebbe adds one more word, Ubeshleimim, and it says it completely. Which is Nesinas, Mitzvahs, the Dinei HaTorah, Hashem gives us the commandments and the laws of the Torah. The Pashas Yisrei tells us the whole story of the event of Aseret Centimeters from beginning to the end, but only every part of that story which touches on what God is giving us. Top of page 150 says, "Unogda," and only after we detail ended till it completes total them Esh and the first half of Hashem giving us the Torah, which is that He gave it to us. Hate on the Torah, Mefared on the Torah, then begins to list, to delineate everything connected to the second day of Matan Torah, which is the covenant that Hashem made with us. And the Rebbe says, this is the division of Pasuk Yisrael and Pasuk Mishpat. But now the Rebbe gets a little more complicated. Of course.
Oh, after the part of the intro and speaking the duration of Sunday,
No, Monday to Shabbos.
Monday to Shabbos is because
Skipping Friday.
Not in the Mishpat.
No, that's Hashem giving. That's the Vinishma is Mishpat.
And with the Mishpat.
So we're learning the story of Hashem giving us the Torah. What I'm doing in these classes is I'm going in the order of the chronology, not in the order of the Chumash.
Yeah, I know. But
So we did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each one of those groups took us forever. There's many things. Now we're doing Friday. So although Friday is in Pasuk Mishpatim, we're putting it into where the story holds in terms of chronology and time.
so in Israel, from Monday to Shabbos, what is the main point of the
Everything connected to Hashem giving us the Torah.
So Hashem gives to us.
Yes. Okay.
And then Mishpat is Friday.
Our gift to Him, it's Thursday and Friday. It's everything that connects to how we took the Torah from David. Are we committed to keep the Torah?
And that's from Thursday afternoon.
From Thursday afternoon, basically through Friday, yeah, and then maybe something else, but we get to it in a minute. Now, this is our fourth week on this, right? This is our fourth week that we stopped learning Siddur, we started learning Chumash. The first 2 weeks, all we did was learn Chumash. For 2 or even 3 weeks, we learned Chumash. And I told her that at the very end of Pasuk Mishpatim, it's not clear when it happened. The end of Pasuk Mishpatim describes how Hashem told Moshe to come up the mountain, how Moshe told the Jewish people that he's leaving behind Aaron and Hur to look after their needs, and then Moshe Rabbeinu goes up the mountain, and the end of Pasuk Mishpatim is that Moshe goes up the mountain, he enters into the clouds. So it's finished. And it actually writes at the end of Pasuk Mishpatim, I'm not sure when this is. It can be 2 opinions. One opinion is that this is the 7th day before Hashem gave us the Torah. And the other opinion is that it's the 7 days after Hashem gave us the Torah. It takes 7 days to enter into the Eibishter's Shechina. So what you have is at the end of Pasuk Mishpatim the description of Moshe Rabbeinu going up the mountain. Now, if you hold in the opinion that the end of Pasuk Mishpatim Moshe going up the mountain and going back to the first of Sivan, that's another anomaly of time, right? You have a parsha which describes Thursday afternoon and Friday, right? Thursday afternoon and Friday. Then it says Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to the mountain and he waits 7 days. Now, if you hold that those 7 days are the 7 days before, that's even earlier than Thursday. That's Monday. You follow?
Yeah.
So there's another chronological anomaly, another chronological inexactitude. I love that word. So you have this. Pashat Yisrael tells you the story of Hashem gives you the Torah. You skip Thursday afternoon and Friday. Pashat Mishpatim completes that. It gives you the rest of Thursday afternoon and Friday. But then Parshat Mishpatim also tells us details which may have occurred even before. To say what I just said in plain words, in other words, is that Moshe Rabbeinu being called to Hashem and coming up the mountain is written both in Parshat Kislev and in Parshat Mishpatim. The same story is written twice. Hashem told Moshe come up the mountain last week. Parshat Kislev. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu Parshat again, come up the mountain. Now read your text. Page 157, second paragraph. Al Pizeh, on this basis, now listen carefully. Is Oich Bar Enfik, it answers another question, which is not a question about a lack of order, but it's a question about repetition. You see, the discussion we had until this point in the Sifra was that the story of Matan Torah, at least according to Rashi, is not written in order. No. Most of it is in Parshat Yisrei, and a little bit, which is in the middle of it, is written in Parshat Mishpatim. But now we're reading about a story which we already had, written twice. Let's look inside. About the Torah the Torah divide. Page 157, second paragraph, second line, third line. Then Sipur, the story. The Genalias Meisha Bahar Noch Matan Torah, where it describes Moshe Rabbeinu going up the mountain after the Torah was given, and now saves his days. It's also divided into two places. When it comes to the 40 days, the Moshe is given Bahar, when Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain, then in Gevez indeed saying Yonim, Moshe went up the mountain for two reasons. Number one, the Reibish had gelernt mit Moshe Chukim Mishpatim Shebeve'ela Mishpatim Kanal. When Moshe was on the mountain for 40 days, Hashem taught him the Torah. He taught him all the laws and Parshat, all the dinim of the Torah, how to be a Jew practically. Number two, the Etna Lachas Luches the Evan the Goyim, he gave him the Luches, the tablets of the covenant. But the Matorah for the Nesinas HaLuches is the Pasha, the purpose for the tablets. And the purpose for giving the tablet. Give the parenthesis. If God was a Zayin and Luches that there are tablets for the covenant. I want to ask you a question. What was written on those stones that's not written in the Sefer Torah? What was written on the stones? The two stone tablets, right? The Torah was written on those stone tablets. The exact same words written on those stone tablets are written in the Sefer Torah. Correct or incorrect? Correct. So why do you have to have the stone tablet? The answer is the stone tablets were not given to us to give us the Torah. The stone tablets were given to us because the tablets represented for this, the covenant. Those was a Zayin in Luches Ha'edus. They're the tablets of witness, or Luches Habris, the tablet of the covenant. They din it, they act, they had Edus as a testimony, as a representation of the witness. Or the bris, not just that Hashem gave us the Torah, but they made a pact with it. But the Eivish that are tailored to them that Hashem made with the Jewish people, the Matan Torah when He gave us the Torah, or Shmiras HaTorah for us to keep the Torah. The Luches don't have any words in them; they're not written in the Sefer Torah. But the purpose of the Luches is not to speak to the knowing of the dinim and knowing how to do the mitzvahs. The Luchas are to speak to our commitment to keep the Torah. tell a story in Lubavitch. It happened in Lubavitch. And the source of the story is by Juba, the name of Rabbi Zalman Shinnim, who I think he was our road. Lubavitch was a yeshiva. And for quite a few years, it was a very good yeshiva, a very big yeshiva. Until the revolution, in the First World War, in about 20 years, Temple was growing by leaps and bounds. It was a very, very successful yeshiva. But the yeshiva was built downwards, not upwards. The first thing they did was make yeshiva for older bachrim, boys in their 20s. You're talking now 125 years ago in Russia, where the Torah, the level of learning Torah in Russia at that time was the highest any place in the world. It really was. The best yeshivas were done. When they ever made a yeshiva, he wanted that in this yeshiva they would have chassidus and they would also have davening, which is what made Temple special. He took boys who were very self-sufficient. They were men, they were not boys. They didn't need teachers. They could sit and learn by themselves all day long. The purpose of the yeshiva was to teach them how to serve God, how to daven. From the very, very beginning, they didn't have any teachers. They had mashpiyim who taught chassidus. Mashpiyim who taught how to daven. And for the main learning, for the nigla learning, they had only mashpiyim. That means people who supervised and answered questions, but they didn't really have teachers. But the bacham that were taken in the beginning were incredibly well advanced. They didn't need any help. But as the yeshiva got better, they made lower and lower levels. They went backward. They started with a very high level, and then they made it lower. Over years, they made it easier to command it. By the time the war started, the First World War, and revolution happened, and all the stuff started, then Chatimim was a full yeshiva from what we would call today high school. The sixth. They called it Chadorim. On the bottom, they called it the grades, the younger bach. So the bigger boys sat in the Zal, it was called, in the big room, all together, and they learned in partners, in pairs. And there were sometimes hundreds of boys sitting in the same room learning about them. It was a beautiful, beautiful scene. But this was for the Bachadim who were, I don't know, 18, 19, maybe 17 years. But the young boys that came to yeshiva by mitzvah age, or before by mitzvah, after by mitzvah, they had classrooms for them, had classes, their teachers. And the teachers had to prepare them, teach them how to learn, and I don't know exactly what their schedule was, but that was the situation. There's a story that they needed a teacher for the Chazal, needed a teacher for these grades, but the teacher had to be incredibly qualified, to be very, very learned. And they brought a bunch of candidates, and they couldn't find anybody who both was learned enough and could conform to the spirit of the yeshiva, whatever that is. So by default, the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe, this is the quote, as a ber steito from vintage love. When the vintage was the essence elected the egg in the lab, which means in English when a bear wakes up from his winter hibernation, they can't find any food, he lifts his own paws. What the Rebbe was saying, and the metaphor was, if you can't find a teacher any place in the world, take one of your own students and make them into a teacher. And that's what they did. They took a boy who was older and very learned, and they gave him a job as one of the teachers of the Chazal. His name was Shmuel from Barasov. He was a young man, I don't know how old he was, in his early 20s, he was very, very good Talmud Chacham, and he was given a class to teach. An hour of Rabbi Zalman Shimon, who was a 14-year-old, was in his class. So they had a building with classrooms, besides for the big study hall with the older Bacham learned, they had a building where younger boys would sit and learn in classes. But I want you to know they're doing excavations in Lubavitch now. They found a basement of a building which is destroyed. And in that basement, they found artifacts. They found bottles of Benedictine. Imagine?
Of course.
It's so interesting. It's so just last week in the magazine they had this. They found a subterranean cellar of a building which is gone. And they found a pocket watch, they found candlesticks, all kinds of interesting belonged to the Rabbeim. in the Chotel Lubavitch. They know exactly where the Rabbi lived. It's like a square block, and they bought the whole territory. They cordoned it off. They want to reconstruct it the way it looked then.
Wow.
And they're investing money to make it. But in the meantime, they're doing excavations, and they found the foundations of a stone structure that was built for the yeshiva. And the rule was that in these classrooms, the teacher had his back to the door. The rooms were arranged in such a way that the students would sit, they were facing the door, the teacher had his back to the door. And the other rule was that you were not allowed to close the door. The door was not allowed to be closed.
Wow.
So that people could walk by in the hall, they could look in and they could hear. Now, obviously, in order for that to happen, the hallway had to be quiet. I teach in Kislev, it doesn't always work out. But in Lubavitch, it worked. So the Rabbi Shimon tells the story. Our former Rav was a boy of 14 years old. He was very bright. He was one of the better students. And the teacher was teaching. This Rav Shmuel Bar-Asov was a young fellow. And he was unprepared. The teacher then was Shmuel from the city of Bar-Asov. Anyway, you don't worry about it. He was teaching and he was unprepared. It happens. Who walks by? The Rebbe, the shop. Not the previous Rebbe, who was the principal, but the actual Rebbe at the time. And he stands by the door and he came perfect. He had the day that the guy wasn't prepared. He was only prepared. He wasn't prepared. Now, he can't see what's going on behind him, right? But he can see how the boys are behaving. Everyone is sitting very straight and very close attention. He could tell from the Bochanim that the Rebbe is behind him. But he was not prepared. But he was very limited. So he gave them a brilliant class. Very scholarly, very analytical, very thought through, understood all of the span on top of the head. It was good in every way except for one. There was no way they could follow it. He wasn't talking to them. He was talking to them. A prepared teacher doesn't just teach, he teaches his students. He was smart enough to do it on the fly, impromptu, but he was not smart enough and deep enough to speak to them on their level. And of course, he didn't fool the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab saw it straight through it. So later on, the Rebbe called him this mashkiach, this teacher. And he said that if you were teaching in another school and you told them such a stuff, they'd worship you for your brilliance, your acumen, and your speed. He said, but here, we make like they would have They didn't fire him, but he got the message. Why you can't be unprepared. I cannot tell you how many minutes I spent this morning preparing this class. And I'm unprepared. I'm on what's my meditation? What's the anticipation? Forgive me for a digression, but I make a living on digression. There are many Maimonic seers that speak to the story of Matan Torah. Goes without saying. There's a lot of Chassidus that explain the Shem giving us the Torah. Because Chassidus doesn't just teach us the what, it teaches us the why. Chassidus doesn't just teach you what the Torah is, it teaches what the Torah is about. So obviously the event of giving the Torah, which is seminal, which is basic, and that whole area is something which Chassidus is going to dominate. He's going to engage in heavily. One of the things that you find in the Maimonic Chassidus about the event of the giving the Torah is a question, which is very obvious. The question is right in front of you. That is the following. I'll tell you how I say it in my cliche/cynical way. What is the proof that Hashem is a misnadi? What is the proof of Aseret Sadigris that Hashem is a misnadi? I have undeniable proof. I'm going to get to it later when we do Matan Torah Shabbos. Today we do it Friday. What the proof is? He came on time. Not only he came on time, he came before his students. He was the first one there. Now, What is the proof that Hashem is a chassid? No, the answer. Hashem is giving one shear, one. He's never going to give a shear again. And in the entire shear, he doesn't say one chiddush. And the entire shear doesn't say one original idea. Every one of the ideas is over. They got 10 commandments, 10. Most of them are the 7 laws of Noah. And the last couple, they also got the fourth model. Shabbos, Kibbutz of the Aim, the few that were not in the original 10, they also got it more. In other words, Hashem comes down on a mountain one time to talk to the people of the world, to the Jewish people, and doesn't say one original idea. So the Maimonides Chassidish say, would you please explain it to me? The Eibishter makes an appearance, he's never coming again. Every other time Hashem wants to talk to us, he's going to send us a prophet, he's going to send us Moshe Rabbeinu. The one time you're talking to us, to say it in Yeshivish language, Zagachid, say something original. There's not a single original thought in the entire 10 Commandments. And the question is why? This is the question that Chassidus asks. And Chassidus gives a very important answer. The answer that Chassidus gives is that the Eibishter comes down on a mountain and he gives us 10 commandments, each and every one of which was already familiar to us, because he wants us to know that it's coming down on the mountain is not about the mitzvahs. It's not about the faith. It's about himself. When Hashem came down on Har Sinai and he gave us the title, what did he give us? He gave us himself. Well, like we know from the Anochi, Hashem wrote himself into the Torah. And when the Yid learns Torah and does mitzvahs, he's not connected to God's ideas and God's commandments. He's connected to God because God wrote himself into the book. That's what the Maimonim actually say. The reason that Seres and Dibet are all old is that we should know that what's important is not the rules. The rules we could have gotten from Moshe. The rules, in fact, we got from Moshe. What's important, as Seres and Dibet, is that Hashem met us and gave us himself as he's written into the Torah and so forth and so on. You follow? You understand? On that basis, on the basis of this presumption, this idea, when Hashem came down on the mountain and gave us the Torah, really giving us himself, it turns out that Aseres HaDibur is the 10 Commandments with Hashem giving us himself. The Torah and the mitzvahs, Hashem did not give us himself, Hashem gave Moshe and Moshe gave to him. You follow? Moshe Rabbeinu taught us the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain. He had a Torah from the Eibishter. He came down the mountain and he gave us the Torah which the Eibishter gave him. Aseres HaDibur is the 10 Commandments of Hashem giving us himself. But the rules, his instructions, his understanding, whatever it is, we have to make sure. Okay. Now, one of the explanations for this is that that's Pashat Mishpatim. Do you know Pashat Mishpatim? Do you remember Pashat Mishpatim? Pashat Mishpatim is business law. Pashat Mishpatim, you go to the Rambam and say for a mitzvahs. Who will say for a mitzvah? Raise your hand.
We do after doing dinner.
You will say for a mitzvahs, yeah? What are you learning about?
Each day a girl reads, we pull it up online, a girl reads it up.
Right now we're saying?
Yep.
Right now we're learning about not giving, not taking to someone else.
Not stealing.
Stealing, like, you're not allowed to decide.
Looking after lost objects.
You're not allowed to try and coerce someone into selling to you. You're not allowed to try and decide, oh, I didn't pay this person back.
You can't covet someone.
Not allowed to covet, I'm learning 3 drugs, but trust me, getting away with murder. Oh!
How long does it take you?
It depends on the day. It's not such long shura, but it's also stuff I learned in yeshiva. The laws of Tara, which we finished a couple of days ago, are much more foreign to me. But forget the fact that you learn yeshiva actually makes it harder because you understand that I'm a little better. How much time did I spend yesterday at Rambam? Probably an hour. I mean, sometimes I spend an hour and a half or 2. It takes time. It takes a lot of time.
How do you fit that into a day?
I said that's the story of my life, my friend. That's what I do. I learn and teach. That's my business. But it's hard. I learned Rambam. I try my best. I don't always learn it sufficiently well. Sometimes I sit down at night to learn and I fall asleep every line. It takes 2 hours to read a page because I keep falling asleep and keep falling asleep. It's very difficult. And when you're tired, you can't even understand. But the concentrate, it's deep, it's very sensitive. Pashat Mishpatim is about the stuff we're learning now. There really are two. Torah is divided up into a lot of sections. Okay? We divide up into 6 according to the Mishnah. Zrayim, Moyed, Noshan, and Dik, and Kotash. Zrayim means laws to do with agriculture. The laws that do with agriculture to a very great extent have to do with living in Israel. Moyed means laws that do with time. Laws that do with time means Shabbos and Yom Tov and Kippur and things like this. Noshim means laws that do with marriage. Man and wife, marriage. Included in the laws of marriage, the reasons I'm not going to get into are the laws of vows. Shvuas, Nedarim, Nadir, and Noshim. Then you have Nezikin. Nezikin literally means damages. But Nezikin means business law. Nezikin means business law. Laws of business. Then you have Kachim, which means all the laws of the Beis HaMikdash and Karbonis. And then you have Taras with all the laws of purity and impurity. There's 6 sections of Mishnah, okay? And the Torah is divided up according to the Mishnah into these 6 groupings. Nezikin means business law. Business law, so now, all of these 6 orders of the Mishnah are in the Chumash. And the 5 books, where you have to look. A little bit here, a little bit there, right? It's all spread out. There's a big chocolate, a big vinaigrette. It's hard to find where the different mitzvahs are in the Torah, okay? But business law, for the most part, I'm not going to say it's 100%, is in 2 passions. The business laws in Torah are found in Pashat Mishpatim, which you read after Hashem gave us the Torah, and in Pashat Bahar, which is in the book of Vayikra, in Leviticus, which is a short passion. So much of Seder Nezikin is in these 2 pashas in the Chumash, okay? Now here's what you need to understand about it. God gave us the Torah. The Torah is supposed to learn, the Torah is supposed to understand, and the Torah is supposed to keep. Correct? Yes? Torah has all kinds of ideas. For example, the laws of Karbanis. The laws of Karbanis make sense.
A person that's never done Kabbalah, it's not necessarily, but for a person that has done Kabbalah, it does. Another thing is,
the laws of Kabbalah are strange on a lot of levels. There's a lot of logic to the laws of Kabbalah. A lot of logic. But the logic of the laws of Kabbalah is founded on certain beliefs. Kabbalah only makes sense if you accept, that there's a God, then he created the world, then you have to accept a lot of stuff for Kabbalah to make sense. What about the laws of purity and impurity? Tarentum, like Tzaras, Paraduma, things like that. Do those make sense? Again, it's the same idea. Some of it doesn't make sense at all. A lot of it is very logical, but it's only logical if you presuppose many different things. You have to accept certain things before for it to make sense that you have Taras and you have Kedusha. According to Jewish law, Kedusha, Karbonis is higher than that. Purity comes before all of it. Okay? And the same is true of laws of agriculture. All the laws of agriculture, and especially the laws of agriculture connected specifically to the Holy Land, as you saw, they make sense if you accept certain presuppositions. You understand? What I'm trying to bring out is all parts of Torah make sense, but all parts of Torah make sense on a higher level. If you go up to a higher level, they'll begin to make sense. They'll make sense more. Some parts have to go even higher, some parts have to go high. Which part of the Torah is the most down to earth? To say it in different words, which part of the Torah requires you to accept the least on a faith level before you can apply it? And we enter business. The business law is so down to earth. Torah's business law is so down to earth. Many legal systems in countries all over the world are founded entirely or in part on Jewish business law. Because don't kill means the same thing to a Jew as to a non-Jew. Don't steal means the same thing to a non-Jew, right? Keep Shabbos, that's a whole other story. Bring a carbon, it's a whole other story. So there is a component of business law which is the most down to earth part of Torah. So there's a Gemara in the Mishnah Masechet Baba Basra which says, if you want to be smart, learn Jewish business. If you want to be smart, learn Jewish business law. If you learn Shabbos, you're not going to be smart. You learn Kabbalah, you're not going to be smart. You learn about Tas, you're not going to be smart. What is the meaning of this mission? If you want to be smart, you should learn business law. The answer is that of all sections of the Torah, this is the most logical and the most down to earth. It's the most logical, it's most sensical, without having to have formal belief. It's very, very brought down. Other parts of Torah are also logical, but they're logical, but you have to accept more things before. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So when you learn Jewish business law, you have two perspectives. One is, it's the least spiritual of all parts of Torah. Jewish business law is the least spiritual of all parts of Torah. Why? It makes so much sense that Goy understands it. Not only it makes so much sense that the Goy understands it, it makes so much sense that the Goy adopts it, it makes it his. You follow? But there's another point of view. What's the other point of view? What's the other point of view?
But it's also so intelligent that it widens your mind.
Point well taken, but I'm saying a different thing. The other point of view is that God's wisdom comes from here to here. Not all levels of God's wisdom come all the way down. Some of them we have to go up to. Torah business laws, God's wisdom brought all the way down into the world. In other words, since the whole Torah is Hashem's wisdom, the part of the Torah where you see the miracle of the giving of the Torah the most is when it comes to business law. In other words, Torah business law is also Torah. Just like everybody understands that the laws of Shabbos are holy, and the laws of Karbonos are holy, and the laws of being pure are holy, the laws of not stealing are also holy. It's just that they're brought down the most. So you get these two angles, and they're both true. One angle is that Torah business law is the least religious, because it makes so much sense. And the other angle of Torah business law is the most religious, is because they're brought down to such a level that it makes sense to the common man. That ever once spoke about the idea of morality and ethics and God. He spoke about it a lot, actually. What is the connection between God and morality and ethics? And that ever makes it very clear, his position is, Taylor's position is, that the most simple truths, like don't murder, cannot exist without God. Not that they don't make sense. People are not going to keep it. And he proves it. He proves it. I mean, the example that everyone cited, I remember that saying it. Germany was the most modern country in the world before the Second World War. It was the most sophisticated, and the best academy, the best university. And they studied philosophy, including the philosophy of humanity and morality. And yet they had no problem killing millions of people. And Rebbe once pointed out that while they were killing millions of people, they're prosecuting people for abusing their dogs. No, it's true. And in Germany, there were very strict laws about the abuse of animals. So the Rebbe asked, how could you kill millions of people systematically and cruelly and worry about the safety of animals? The answer is, when you don't have God, you become your own God. And when you become your own God, you can make anything you want correct and anything you want incorrect. You would think that murder is so basic that everyone would have the same idea of what is and isn't murder. But we found out that it's not true.
But I thought they were all Catholic.
I don't think Germany is Catholic, maybe Protestant, but the Nazis were, Hitler was
It was a Jew.
was against religion altogether. That's another conversation. They were not really. One second, give me a second. Yeah. So the Rebbe makes an argument that's a very important argument that says that the parts of the Torah that are the most logical are as much in need of God as the parts of the Torah that are least logical.
Would you say that again?
The parts of Torah that are the most logical are as much in the need of God as the parts of the Torah that are least logical. When you learn karbonis, it makes no sense if you don't accept that Hashem gave you. When you learn about do not murder, it also doesn't make sense that Hashem gave you. Now, you don't really believe that. Come on, we all know we shouldn't kill. That isn't really. Look at history. You need God not just for the lofty things, but for the mundane. In other words, just as keeping kosher and bringing karbonis and keeping Shabbos are true in the parameters of the holy Torah, so is do not kill and do not steal. It's true because the Eibishter made it true. It is only, and these are sort of the other words, the Eibishter was kind, and he brought them down to a level of logic, which is so logical that you could think that you don't need God. That you could think you'll come up with these laws by yourself. But the truth always is that you need the Eibishter. So listen carefully, listen carefully. The parts of Torah that are most down to earth, business law, you could say on the one hand that you need God the least, but that God is present in them the least. But you could say on the other hand that the presence of God of those is the most important, is the most nuanced. Because you could tell yourself you don't need them when in reality they don't make sense without it. You follow what I'm saying? You understand what you understand the train of thought I'm trying to develop? Now, why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? Because right after Yisrei comes Mishpat. Right after Hashem gives us that status of Dibris, he talks about business law. Doesn't talk about Karbonis. Doesn't talk about Paraduma. He talks about business law, and you scratch your head and say, I don't understand. God just came down on a mountain and he gave us himself. And he can't find anything more original to talk about the kinds of things that people know by themselves. Let's talk about murder. Let's talk about stealing. Really? Don't we know that already? And the answer is the message of the Torah. By putting Jewish business law right after Saturday Dibris and say, oh no, you don't know anything without David. Not only don't you know Shabbos and kosher and karbonis, like the Abish, you do not know, do not steal, you need God for those things, or like you need God in a way for those things even more. Does that make sense? This what I'm sharing with you is an idea that it's very, very important. You follow in the back?
Yeah.
The Russian statues don't nod. Huh? Yes, you understand? Yeah, okay, very good. Pardon me, Baruch Shem Pegosel Baruch Shamnu, Kivanu Daifi, Kizavnu, Havinu.
That's odd.
I wish it was funny. I really, it's such a serious thing. War is so terrible. Such a terrible. Now wait, here's the point. The point is Hashem gives you the Torah of Har Sinai, and he follows up with business law. What is the message? The message is from the highest of the high to the lowest of the low are given in a continuum. Parshas Mishpatim follows right after Aseret Dibris to say that you go from the mountain where God is giving us the Aseret Dibris. But the truth of the matter is He's not giving us the Aseret Dibris because the Aseret Dibris we already knew, right? What's the proof that Hashem is a chassid? Hashem is giving one shir and doesn't say one chiddush, not one original idea. Every one of the Aseret Dibris we had from before. So why are you telling us what we already know? And the answer is because the Aseret Dibris is not about giving us rules, it's about giving us himself. So you start off here, and you jump to here, to say that everything in Torah, from the holiest and the most removed from our mind, to the lowest and to the most basic to our mind, all come from the same place. Parshas Mishpatim, Jewish business law, comes right after Aseret Dibris to say, this is also from God. Not just Kachima from God, Karbonis, not just Padasa from God, the laws of being pure, spiritual pure, not physical cleanliness. Not just the laws of Shabbat and Yom Tov from God, the laws of stealing and killing and relationship with your neighbors. If I scratch your car, if my animal hurts your property, all of these halachas come back. So the message is from the highest of the high to the lowest of the low. You with me?
Yeah.
You with me? Thanks for nodding. I do appreciate it. Right? What's the one rule about a nod? How many times I make a stupid corny joke? What's the one rule about a knot?
Yeah.
That after your head goes down, it has to come back up.
What
Otherwise, it's not a knot, it's called nodding up, you see? Huh?
about your point?
What is that supposed to mean? So you fall asleep, you would nod, you get up, okay, I got the message. So now, here's what I'm trying to say. What's the point of all this? I just spent a few minutes going off on a tangent because I have to set the stage for this little stick of it. Hashem gives us the Torah at Har Sinai. Moshe goes up the mountain. He comes, you get what? You get business law. When did Hashem teach you about business law? In the 40 days after. 40 days after. Hashem gives us the Torah. Moshe goes up the mountain. Hashem teaches all the business law that we need to know. And in teaching us business law, he's not teaching us only business. He's teaching us also business law. How high does it start? It starts with Kavanis, which is the holiest. It goes down to purity, then it comes to Shabbos and to Yom Tov and to agriculture and to marriage and to business law. When he finishes all of that, he starts over again. That Hashem is Moshe Rabbeinu converting the Jewish people. The story of the conversion of the Jewish people, which we are learning, that happens on Friday, is not at the beginning of Mishpatim, it's at the end of Mishpatim. Why? Because the body of Pashat Mishpatim is describing what Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain. Do you follow what I said? I need you to acknowledge what I'm saying.
Yeah. So where they got the Torah is at the end of Mishpatim?
The story that we're talking about, when Moshe is converting the Jewish people before they got the Torah, is at the very end of Mishpatim. What's the body of Mishpatim about until this point? The body of Mishpatim is Jewish business law. So the way this, you're going to have to close that window. It's freezing.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you to get cold. You start off, Hashem gives the Torah Har Sinai, right? 10 Commandments. After Hashem gives the Torah Sanibris, you don't go straight to the conversion story. Then you tell all the business laws of Pashat Mishpatim, follow them. When you finish all of that, that's when you go back to the conversion story. Why? Because the business laws recorded in Pashat Mishpatim are part of the first event.
What is the law of Mishpatim? You go back to business law?
No. Mishpatim is business law.
Okay.
When you finish all the business law, then you go back to the story of Moshe Rabbeinu converting the Jewish people before the Torah was given. Why? Why?
I guess.
Because the Torah is written in order.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for guessing to me. But the Torah is not written in order of time. It's written in order of topics. What's the first topic? Everything Hashem gave us. What's the second topic? Our commitment to Him. Including in what Hashem gave us is from standing on top of the mountain all the way till business. From Hashem giving us Himself, which is completely beyond anything you can understand, to the part of Torah which is so logical that you have to remind yourself that it came from God. And that's what the Rebbe is saying in the Sifra now. Go ahead.
I just want to rephrase, so we're expressing that through Mishpatim, it's not not in spite of its mundanity, but because of its mundanity, it is highly spiritual, in that it reminds us that every single thing we only have because of Hashem.
Well, I would phrase it a little differently.
Yeah?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge to remember that this comes from God.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge to remember that this comes from God.
Do you mean Hashem is giving us a challenge, or it's a challenge within us?
Hashem is giving us a challenge, yeah. The things that make the most sense to us we think are ours, but they're not. They're also his. It's a challenge. The challenge is I'm going to give you Torah at such a level where it's going to make so much sense to you that you can almost say, I could have written this book. And your challenge is to see God in it and to do them with the mindset that these come from the Eibush.
The things that make the most sense to God is that the Torah that we
To make more sense to people, to make man.
makes sense to people if a lot of people do not disagree with the conception of giving charity, of giving, like, restart the business every 50 years, like about giving like of the year of Shemitah. Like, actually people we do understand business, but we don't understand to give from us. So how it could be that people accept these rules about giving others from their business that they worked so hard for more than purity, for example, family purity rules. Because actually a lot of people, secular ones, do not accept these rules about charity and giving meiser and giving something you worked for, the first fruits you give to Hashem.
You're mixing a lot of things together. Giving charity, people have an easier time with than the laws of the land. That for every 7th year I can work my land, and every 50th year everything starts over. The laws of Shemitah and Yovel are not the most logical laws. The laws of business are the most logical. And Stoka is one of those. The idea that if I make a lot of money, I should give some of my wealth to people who don't have, makes a lot more sense than my real estate. Once every 7 years, I'm not allowed to farm. And you must understand that the laws of Shemitah and Yovel don't apply in the whole world, they apply only in Eretz Yisrael. So the answer to your question is that that's not the most logical. It's actually quite hard. The most logical is don't steal and don't kill and don't cheat and don't lie. And when you have a problem with your neighbor, you have to resolve it. That's what Mishpatim is about. It's not about Shemitah and Yovel. Plain stock is mentioned, yes, in Kislev Talis on the Imach. But the laws of Shemitah are not in Mishpatim. They're a whole other part of the Torah. The Pashas Emei. No, in Pashas Bahar. So think about this. Pashas Yisrei describes how Hashem gave us the Torah. You listening? Pashas Mishpatim begins with Moshe going up the mountain and getting which part of the Torah? The most down-to-earth part of the Torah. Jewish business law. Why is Pashas Mishpatim describing the most down-to-earth part of the Torah? Because that's the bottom. If Hashem teaches Moshe Rabbeinu the laws that are so logical that you don't need Hashem to give him to understand, he certainly gave him the laws that are higher. When you finish all of that, it's not just Hashem giving us the Torah. It's not just Aseret Sadibis. It's not just that week, those few days, Monday till Shabbos. But included in that original story, after Hashem gave us the Torah, Moshe climbs the mountain, Hashem teaches him the whole Torah, even the Jewish business law. Then begins the second part of the story. Go back to Thursday. Hashem hasn't given us the taste of the whole story again. And the second time around, you're describing how we're giving ourselves to Hashem. That's what we're reading right now in the season. I just spent all this time because I have to reframe. And if you have no questions, we're going to go to the text. The truth. Question of the time.
When we are learning, I'm on your class and I'm learning from your perception of the Torah, from your teachings. Do I connect with Hashem's ideas or Hashem himself? Like, do we connect with Hashem only when we're learning the tribes from Chumash? or also when I'm learning from the teacher, this actually by a teacher. You mentioned it before a little bit.
I don't know. Can I give you a look?
If I'm putting the English of Torah, you're connecting to the English. If I'm making something up which is not part of the English of Torah, you're not connecting that to the English, then it's not the Torah. So it's either both or it's neither. Right. Can you get? Why not? I have Karen teaching how to go. Yeah. How much time? I'll wait. It takes 60 seconds. We'll make it.
So we got the business where and all the logic to the whole laws. So then after we found then we were the whole not the making laws like the model.
No. He gave us everything, even the law that Allah. Then you start the story again, not about him giving us, but us giving him. That's the master. Okay, page 157, second paragraph. Our piece. Once you understand that the story of the giving of the Torah is divided into two halves, not based on time, but based on topic. The first topic is Hashem giving, and the other topic is us taking. If the Rebbe is parenthetic, it also explains something else. Above the Torah, why the Torah? To tell the Sefer splits the story. The Genalias Meisha Bahar, how Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to the top of the mountain. Noch Matan Torah, after Hashem gives us the Torah, can now say it's there. The beginning of Mishpatim happens when Moshe is on the mountain. The end of Mishpatim goes back to before Hashem gave us the Torah. So you have not just a division in the story of Hashem giving us the Torah, you have a division in the story of Moshe going up to the mountain and getting Torah from Hashem. Because in the 40 days, when Moshe is given Bahar, when Moshe is learning Torah from Hashem on the mountain, then given the Yonim also have the same two ideas. Just like the 10 Commandments are divided up into two stories, one God gives and the other we receive. Similarly, Moshe going up the mountain and learning Torah from Hashem afterwards is also divided up into two parts, because there's two ideas. Number one, Aleph. That Eivish started the land of Moshe, Hashem teaches Moshe Rabbeinu Hachukim v'Mishpatim to the Eila Mishpatim, Jewish business law. Hashem gave us Torah. Parts of Torah are here, parts of Torah are here, parts of Torah are here. The parts of Torah which comes on the closest to the earth is Pashat Mishpatim. Faith. That Nachal Fluch HaSeven is giving us the tablets. The stone tablets. Because the Matorah from the Nesina Saluch, the reason Hashem gave us the stone tablet, is the Pashtus is simply not for us to learn them. I've never seen that. Has anybody ever seen the Luches? Anybody seen the tablets? Huh? They're in the Adon HaKodesh. Where's the Adon HaKodesh? According to the Rambam, it's buried under the Beis Hamikdash. Never seen it. So why do we have them? And at the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, they didn't have them either. They never took the luchas out of the Adon. They put them in the ark and they sat there. What's the point of having two stone tablets with the 10 Commandments? The problem is no Jew ever sees them. Because they're not there to learn, they're there as a testimony. Testimony of what?
Our commitment to keep the Torah.
So the Rebbe's argument is a testimony not of God's commitment to us, it's a testimony of our commitment to God. There's the tablets of the witness, the testimony. Tablets of the covenant, in other words. They act as a witness of the bliss of the covenant, but the Abish that are given that Hashem made to the Jewish people, emphasis not on the word Hashem, but emphasis on the word Jewish people. The Matan Torah, when he gave us the Torah, of Shmir the Torah, that we're going to keep the Torah.
If we never see them, it's just the knowledge of them.
That's correct.
Okay.
When the Mitzvah movement, and this we can understand, but the Erste in now, the first idea that Moshe Rabbeinu learned the Torah from Hashem, that the Paltiel is written, the Hemshech to the Aseret Sagibris, in continuation of the Ten Commandments, in the Pachas HaMizbeach. In other words, Hashem gave us the Torah. Moshe went up the mountain, and Hashem taught him the whole Torah, including business law. All of those things follow as one continuous idea. When the Indian from the leader Hashem told Moshe to climb up the mountain, the Ether, the Luches, that gave it. The Luches is the Shaykhut from Tzveit Minyan as a separate idea in Matan Torah Hashem giving them. Okay, let's break for 5 minutes and come back. Let's break for 5 minutes.
You serious?
I am. I can't believe how much time I spent preparing and how underprepared I am. It's mind-blowing. I worked so hard this morning, and I was barking on a different tree. Wow.
What do you mean?
I was preparing the next spot.
Oh.
It's not good.
I'm loving
I was feeling that because
Huh?
always for the first 90% of your class, I'm like so stuck in my head processing, and not until the last 20 minutes am I like,
And the last time that I'm like,
it comes
really
to the
good
surface.
because it's so good, but like if I do it for a minute.
Okay, you have 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'm gonna finish this here today. I want to finish.
Oh, yes.
My brother laughed so what? He goes, really, this rabbi told you it's focus. Can I have this? Sure.
I heard a rumor that you may be a Hollywood, Florida area. I'll forget this one. I don't know if you're going to be a Shabbos here before or after. I want to see if I can book you for
What?
I want to see if I can book you for
I'm gonna be in one place Thursday night, another place Shabbat, another place Sunday night. Because I sent it for different groups. I'm sorry. Okay, let's learn. I gave a class last night. A brilliant class, very good class. An hour and 50 minutes, very, very well. And I made a mistake. It's eating me up. I pushed said something wrong.
What was the mistake?
It doesn't matter. I just feel like I'm out of sorts. I just feel like let's go, let's read, let's say. Okay, let's go to page 159 at the top, please. Der Bier Berde between. Let's explain everything we just said in the language of Chassidus. What we learned in this Sikha, for better or for worse, is the idea that the Torah is written in order, but it's not written in order of time, it's written in order of topics. The first topic of Hashem giving us the Torah, beginning with the Aseres HaDibros and ending with Jewish business law. And then we're saying, and everything in between. Yeah. The second topic is how we're taking the Torah. We're taking that, we're committing to keep the Torah, we're making a covenant, which includes also the tablet, not the Aseres HaDibros, the stone. The stone represents the witness of our commitment. What is the Chassidus of these two ideas? We just started. Page 159, second line. The state in Medish, the Medish state. This is all about the Medish. We never quote this Medish hundreds of times. When Hashem gave us the Torah, when God Almighty gave us the Torah, two things changed in the creation. They're both mystical things. Two things changed in the world. Number one, what is high comes low. Hashem, who is removed from the world, comes down into the world. As it says in the Apostle, Hashem al Har Sinai, God Almighty comes down on a mountain. In other words, the Isgalas Alakus no Milo Lamata, revealing godliness from heaven to earth. That's number one. Before Hashem gave us the Torah, there was a heaven and an earth. You can live in either one, you can't live in both. When Hashem gave us the Torah, He's joining together heaven and earth. But in joining together heaven and earth, there's two parts. Number one, heaven is coming down to earth. And number two, let's read it inside. And this that is below. That means people can ascend upwards. As the Pasuk says, "Ve'el Moshe Omar Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Alei al Hashem kamach Hashem yitbarach alei aliyas atachton le'elyon was lost the command." The Matan Torah broke a decree, broke a barrier, broke a separation. But the separation has two parts. It allows for godliness to come into the world, and it allows for a person to be godly. Continues the Rebbe, und das ist der Chilek, this is the difference. The two stories of Hashem giving us the Torah that are written in two different places in the Chumash, although chronologically they happen together, because they're two different ideas that happen at the same time. Parashas Yisrei and Parashas Mishpat. The Parashas of Yisrei, with the description of Hashem giving us the Torah, is found predominantly. And Parashas Yisrei, we have that little part about Moshe Rabbeinu converting the Jewish people. In Parashas Yisrei, in the first Parashah, the discussion is predominantly the idea of the giving of the Torah, emphasis on the word giving. Hashem is the giver with a capital G, and He gave us the Torah. God descended on Mount Sinai. And God spoke. The Ten Commandments, all about God. So when you speak about Hashem changing the world, that godliness and worldliness can come together, that the world can come into a godly place, that God can, so to speak, fit into the world, the first idea of coming into the world, that's in Parashat Yisrei. The Pasha saying in our Pasha, in Pasha Mishpatim, the discussion is primarily Megan Matan Teda Vidasir Mitzad Vitachtanim. It's the story of Hashem giving us the Teda, not from the end of the giver, but from the end of the recipient, from the person who receives the Teda. Like it says in the Chumash, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Alei al Hashem, go up the mountain. Hakdamas Nasla Nishma, saying Nasla before Nishma. B'niyas HaMizbeach, bringing a Mizbeach, Ba'akravas HaKarbanas, and bringing Karbanas, pieces of bris, making the covenant, the Chulu, and so on. You're going to see in the Sikhs that we're going to be learning soon, all these little details are explored. In Parshas Mishpatim, you have the half of the giving of the Torah, which is not about God, the half of the giving of the Torah, which is about people. But just like God comes down from heaven to earth, people are raised up from earth to heaven.
When Hashem comes to us.
No, we go to Him. Pashat Yisrael. Pashat Yisrael, Hashem delivering the Torah to people from heaven to earth. Pashat Mishpatim is us committing to that, is raising ourselves to it. Because the Rebbe is now using Hasidic language. The Hasidic language is when Hashem made the world, there was a divide. The divide was you either live a heavenly life or an earthly life. You can't balance it. When Hashem gave the Torah, He broke that decree and says you could live on earth a heavenly life. Torah came down from heaven to earth. He broke the decree between heaven and earth. So Parshas Yisrei describes His breaking the decree by Him coming down. And Parshas Mishpatim describes His breaking the decree by making it possible for us to go up to Him. And He explains that the difference between these two ideas, Hashem given them as follows. In Parshas Yisrei, last week's Parsha, you described the following: the Izgalus or Atzuma, the incredibly intense revelation, Mamayla from heaven, B'Shas Matan Torah, when Hashem gave us the Torah, which was an event that Yora Kisei HaKavod, the glory, the Hashem's glorious throne of the place.
I have a question whenever.
If you don't wait a second, Yora Kisei HaKavod, the chariot came down from heaven to earth. Shmiya Mipi HaGevura, we heard Hashem's voice, the Chulu, and so on. It's given Lefi Shalom for the moment. For the moment, Hashem got down in this world. Hashem gave Himself to us, but it didn't say. Hashem came into this world, gave us the Torah, and He left. But that was His half of the event of Matan Torah. Masha'enken the Aliyah Satach, when we raise ourselves up, Yit was Hatzich Ufketam B'Shas Matan Torah, which we achieved when Hashem gave us the Torah. But Yidden seine geworden Avdei Hashem, the Jewish people become servants of Hashem. Und damit der Heuben geworden, in as much as we're servants of Hashem, become lifted up, the Lemam Tanu, is an Indian Nitzchi, is an eternal idea. The Baal was coming because this came, Mitzadi Tachtenim Guf, it came from us and not from Him, is thus is in Zay Nikva Gavadim. This part of the story becomes one with us, and Apnimius in an internal life way. The Rebbe says, Pasha describes what Hashem gave us. But everything Hashem gave us didn't stay. We experienced Hashem, right? We talked last year at length, we became prophets. None of that stayed. Pashat Mishpatim describes what we took. What we took is not nearly as dramatic, right? What we took is a commitment that we made. That's forever. That's forever. What's forever is not the Torah as the Abishta gave it to us. What's forever is that the Torah the Abishta gave us, we took it and made it our own. And I guess what the Rebbe is saying underneath it all is that as we take more and more of it, more of what he gave us then becomes our permanent. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Now you. So you said that he broke the decree. It makes sense to me that he broke the decree for us, but it's sounding like you're saying that he had previously placed a decree upon himself that he couldn't come down to us.
Correct. Yeah.
What?
Yes. Yeah, that's the message. Yeah. How do I explain this to you?
Carefully.
We're going to Chassidus. But Chassidus is explaining the Jewish religion. It's explaining Yiddishkeit, right? With an Alam called Das Emes, the religion of truth. Chassidus is presenting you with the correct thesis of what Torah really is. And what Torah really is not Hashem telling us how to live. What Torah really is Hashem telling us, forgive my exaggeration, how we can become godly. Hashem did not create the world for people to be good. Hashem created the world for people to be godly. And becoming godly required that he gives himself to us. But that possibility did not exist when he created the world. That possibility began when he gave us the Torah, and in giving us the Torah, he gave us himself. So your point is very well taken. Correct. He didn't just make the decree for us, he made the decree for himself, and he did not allow the possibility of the fusion of God and world, God and man, to be possible until he gave us the Torah. Now you're supposed to ask me why not. And the answer is very simple. Hashem first wanted people to do whatever they could do by themselves. First. And that's what the others represented. And only afterwards he gave us the Torah. The Torah is not just teaching us how to be good people. Torah is teaching us how to be divine, godly. Right.
Like when somebody like no matter who they are, no matter what they come from, decides that they want to be, like they want to be like religious. That's what like people like they want to make that choice, even if that's something even if it's not, because they're making that choice of like they've had all this time and now it's finally like they're choosing Hashem, or any single person that's in seminary or in a place of learning. It doesn't necessarily matter if they remember every single class and every single philosophy they actually remember. It's more with people it's more just spend this time focusing on Hashem and like you take away.
I think what you're saying is true. But I also think that what you're saying needs a qualifier. And the qualifier is, it's impossible to stay religious without mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible to become religious. In fact, it seems that mitzvahs interfere. If religious means having a relationship with God, the last thing you need is rules. But if religious means that your relationship with God should last a lifetime, you must have. And the rules don't just protect the relationship, they bind it. And that's why Hashem gave us mitzvah.
why do the rules act like a binding again? Like why do we need rules to stay religious?
Cannot be religious in a sustained way in your mind and your heart alone. You can be religious in a sustained way if it goes with your body. And your arms and your legs, every part of it. Because the religion is only in your mind and your heart, and your body is going to be going in a different direction. They're going to separate. You have to bring God into your life. How do you bring faith into your fingers?
By utilizing them in a way.
By putting on filling.
Yeah.
How do you bring Hashem into your gut? It's even kosher.
You're using your body.
You're using everything you own. In His worship, He filled all of you. It's one of the most important ideas. You know, you hear all the time how, quote, Judaism is a religion of ritual. And it's not said favorably. It's said pejoratively. Judaism focuses on do this, do this, do this. It's not true. Judaism is not a religion of ritual. Judaism is a religion of ritual also. Judaism is a religion of ritual that believes, and it's so correct, that everybody goes through their trip. You know, I've always said that the religious period, you know, 6 months in your life, you're very holy. But then it flutters away. Because it doesn't hold. What holds it is the mitzvah. What holds it is the daily living as a Jew. It's just the way it is. And of course, there's two parts. One part is you're doing the mitzvahs. Another part is that you're engaging your body. You're using your arms and your legs doing mitzvahs. It makes you somebody who's not doing Judaism, but it is Jewish. It fills you. Sure.
What's the biggest difference on your opinion, and what like the impact we have now that we're so different from now the Jews in our nowadays from the 600,000 Jews who converted and accepted the Torah before they like Mishma, and they were so submissive in towards godliness, and why now people have. We as Jews have so many explanations and even logical explanations and proof why the Torah is like healthy, this is healthy, and we're still not that submissive as Jews. Then, what's your opinion? Why we are that different?
You see, you ask a question with a lot of assumption. Ask me a question, and you're saying certain things as fact. What about only with the facts?
Fact?
Yeah.
Fact is now not everyone.
But they were more submissive then and were less submissive now.
That we are not submissive as they are.
How do you know? They were more submissive.
Because they all converted and accepted Torah without even knowing what's going to be in the future.
Because God was sitting on top of their head. What happened a month later? They made an eagle. What happened a year later? They made a revolution. In other words, you're asking a question with certain assumptions that are just not so simple. There's only one question. And it's a totally different question. It's not your question at all. The one question is, number one, how can we still exist? And yet we're still confused. That's the question. Jews exist 3,250 years after the event. You would think it would all be simple and easy. We're still here. And we still manage to be not sure. You still need to lack submission in your words. That's the question. It's a very interesting question. You could use that question to approve, as a proof for the lack of certainty of Yiddishkeit. But you could also use that question as a proof for Hashem's infinite ability to never, ever take away our free will. But we're leaving that alone. I'll see you in a week, Mitzvah Hashem. We're finished. We just finished. We finished. I am really not happy with myself today. I am really not happy with myself today.
We like it.
I thank you.
What's the last point you have to bring back to people?
Huh?
What's the last point you have to bring back?
The last point was a mystical. And the mystical point was that when Hashem gave us the Teddy, he broke a decree in heaven and earth. The breaking between heaven and earth involved him and us. But the him part of it was for that time only. The us part of it is forever. And our role is to internalize more and more the part of it which is him. I don't know if I managed. I worked so hard this morning and I came unprepared.
You could have fooled us.
Well, thank you. You kind. Okay, I'll see you in a week.
Can I ask a question based off of last week's class that I kind of mulled over?
Yes, but I'm sort of in a rush, so do it quick.
Okay, my question was, you said that a non-Jew could reach Madriga prophecy, so does that mean that they're closer to Hashem than a Jew who isn't on that Madriga?
No, because he doesn't have mitzvahs.
It's
It's a different thing. It's a different thing. He asked me about mitzvahs. Hashem gave us mitzvahs. Mitzvahs doesn't mean you do what Hashem says, you become godly. You can be a non-Jew and a prophet. It's not the same thing as mitzvahs. It's different. We make brachas. We say, Asher kedeshonu b'tzvei b'tzivon. Asher kedeshonu. Hashem separated us from the whole world, from its base of the Jewish commandments. B'tzivon, when he connected us to him. You know, Goyim can keep kosher. Goyim can do most mitzvahs. Goyim can put up mezuzahs, but they can't make a brach. They can't make a brach.
What do you mean?
If a guy blows shofar, you cannot say check the shana mitzvah the one with miracle there. They can do whatever he wants, but he wasn't given the idea that when he does this mitzvah, he's connected to God.
He's connected to him, like if he reaches that Madriga, like a level of knockout. It's not like that.
Well, now we're using fancy words, but
It's almost easier for a non-Jew to reach that Madriga than it is for a Jew, because you're saying a Jew has more responsibility and a higher connection than